So in this update, I just wanted to let people know I've implemented a scan doubler to let VGA output now. So on the familiar episodes of 4, 6 and 8 where we had pictures out on the screen, now we get them coming out on a VGA monitor. And from this point on, in each episode we can have both CRT and VGA. Okay, so I'm on the GitHub for the code for each episode. Pretty familiar here. If we take a look at episode 8, the last one, before we just had tank B FPGA. I've split that into two now. So we've got tank B FPGA CRT, which is the old version that can go straight into the CRT. And then we've got tank B FPGA VGA. So if we have a look at that, we've got a few extra things here. We've got a top module. So let's click on that first. So in the old version, the tank B FPGA was the top module, and that was going straight to the MiSTer pins. We've stuck something in between now. This top module is what is connected to the MiSTer pins. So FPGA clock 50, the two buttons. We've got VGA, H-Sync and V-Sync. Before we were just using a single one of those. I think the H-Sync had a composite sync on it. We are actually using both now. And then the VGA R, G and B from there. So in this module it's pretty simple. We're instantiating a few things. Firstly, we need a 32 megahertz clock for the VGA clock. So the scan doubler is using a 32 megahertz clock. So I've just created an additional PLL phase lock loop for that one. Called it scan dub clock PLL. It has the same input 50, has a reset, and it's got the clock 32 as the output. I didn't include it in the other PLL that we had, which we could do. I wanted to keep them separate because I want the CRT version to be as simple as possible, so that this doesn't muddle it up. So it's just a bolt-on effectively. We're instantiating the clock FPGA module now. As said before, we pass the clock 50 to it, we pass the reset and the user buttons, and then we get out from it, these are outputs, the H-Sync, V-Sync, RGB. So these come out and then they're passed to the scan doubler. So now we're instantiating the scan doubler. We'll have a look at the code in a minute, but we pass the 32 megahertz clock. We pass it the H-Sync, the V-Sync, the RGB. These are all from the tank FPGA module, and then this is the output. So we get the VGA, H-Sync, V-Sync, RGB, and that goes straight to outside. So that's that, pretty simple. This scan doubler is not my own code, so I'm not claiming anything there. This is from the MiSTer project. I used the MiSTer version because it's a bit simpler. The MiSTer project had just a VGA, it didn't have HDMI, so therefore it just had slightly simpler implementation of a scan doubler. Sorgelig has actually made changes to this one for the MiSTer version, so he's added a few features. One thing you might see when you try to use this is that the images on the screen aren't totally centered. You sometimes might have to do a bit of calibration to your VGA screen to get them showing. It's definitely workable, and it's functional to get seeing stuff on a VGA screen, but it's not optimal. But don't forget, at the end of this project we're going to start implementing all the MiSTer framework anyway, so really it's just to get us up to that point, to have something simple to use until we do that. So this scan doubler module, effectively all it's doing is it's using a buffer to do double lines and change the sampling really of the video and outputting it in a different frequency. So it's pretty complex. I don't totally understand it necessarily myself at this point, but it was not too bad to implement. just taking this code and implementing it into my design. And then we've got our tank FPGA V file, which is exactly the same as it was before. The only thing we've done on this one is down the bottom here, we did have a composite sync we were outputting. We were outputting composite sync here on the VGA HS, but here we're actually now going to output for the VGA, we're going to output HSync and VSync. So what we're doing here is we already had a signal for not HSync, so we're saying not HSync, which equals HSync, and the same thing with VSync. So we're outputting those out of the module into the top module and down into the scan doubler. We're obviously got the same RGB that's outputting, so very little changes here to the actual module, but we get to show VGA out there using this technique. So that's it for this one, just a short video just to say this was implemented, and going forward each episode is going to have two of these. It's going to have a CRT version and a VGA version, just to allow people to keep up if they've got a VGA monitor and not a CRT. So thanks for joining me, and catch you in the next one where we're going to be talking about CPUs.